If you asked the doctor, what is IVF? They'd give you an answer like, it's a process whereby the ovaries are stimulated, eggs are retrieved, fertilized, and an embryo is transferred. But that's a doctor. Try asking someone who's been through a few cycles.
It is physically and emotionally the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
I've heard that a lot in doing this show. And of course, it's not just uncomfortable injections that we're talking about here. So today, we're going to really get into it with our guest, Tara Stark. I'm Dan Bolger with Progeny, and this is Infertility. Hi there. Before we dive in, I just need to do a little housekeeping. First, yes, you should subscribe and like this video and rate and review this podcast wherever you're listening, but that's not the main thing. No, the main thing is for me to address the format. This is a video podcast. We haven't done one of these before, so this episode is being simulcast on YouTube as well as streamed on Apple and everywhere else where you might get a podcast. We're going to try to do this more when our guests are comfortable recording video, and we hope you like it. If you're a frequent listener to the podcast but want to check out the YouTube, you can go to youtube.com/progeny, and that's where you'll see me talking to you right now. Hi there. Let's dive in. Tara and her husband got married in 2019, and they decided to start trying about a year after the wedding.
It was only about trying for 5 months with OPKs that I went to seek fertility help. I just had a gut feeling that something was off, and I was 34 years old, and even though I felt young, I know that in the fertility world, 34 is not young, and then you reach 35 and everything changes drastically. So approaching that age, I just wanted to get in and get the ball rolling if something was wrong.
And something was wrong. Tara started with her OBGYN, who ran some blood work.
And the blood work revealed that I had an AMH of 0.2, which is considered to be an ultra low AMH and indicative of diminished ovarian reserve, which later an ultrasound did confirm that I had diminished ovarian reserve, which is a very, very low egg count in my case.
Diminished ovarian reserve is one of those things where time really starts to matter. So Tara's next stop was with a fertility specialist.
The doctor recommended that we start with IUIs, and so that's what we did. I had my first IUI on my 35th birthday. One to remember, I mean, we were praying for a birthday miracle, even though it was unsuccessful.
All people are different, and without knowing the ins and outs of Tara's test results, and especially without being, her fertility doctor, it's hard to say for sure. But in general, those with diminished ovarian reserve tend to be better served going straight to IVF, as IUI success rates would be considerably low, and every year and month that goes by is an extremely valuable one when dealing with low egg reserve. So doctors often encourage these patients to try IVF right away.
Within all this time of getting the diagnosis, I had been doing a lot of research. I had joined support groups, and I was learning a lot on my own, and I learned that IUIs aren't really the best route to take for diminished ovarian reserve. So we requested an IVF consult with her and also with a doctor in another practice. And both of those doctors confirmed that they thought with my age and with my diagnosis, I should begin treatments for IVF.
IVF has considerably better chances to work for those with DOR than IUI does. But of course, there are a few downsides to IVF. The biggest of the downsides, of course, is the cost.
The doctor said that because of having DOR, I would need to plan on having several retrievals. And she told us to plan on spending at least $50,000 out of pocket because I did not have fertility coverage. And that just sent me into a spiral. My heart sank, and my husband and I were debating, are we going to do this? If we're going to do this, how are we going to do this? And are we going to spend this kind of money on something that isn't even a guarantee? I kept saying I never want to look back years down the road and regret not trying. I just didn't want to have those regrets. So we both figured we should go for it. I'm a teacher, and so we started on the first day of school in August of 2021. My first round was canceled because I had one dominant follicle growing. My second round of stims was canceled because I had no response. So I started in August. I didn't actually have a successful retrieval until November of 2021. So we got 4 mature eggs. 2 of them fertilized and 2 of them became blastocysts.
Those might seem like low numbers, but for those with DOR, the expectation is to retrieve few eggs and ultimately get few embryos.
We did a frozen transfer. My doctor wanted to prepare my uterus, thicken up the lining, and do one at a time. So, we transferred the first one in January of 2022. That failed, and that was crushing because we worked so hard to get these embryos. And then we tried the second transfer in March of 2022, which did lead to a successful pregnancy, but ended up being a miscarriage. We didn't find out until 9 weeks. We went in for our 9-week appointment, and we had previously seen the heartbeat. We had been told that the growth and the heartbeat looked great. Everything was perfect. So we went in for our 9-week appointment. When the sonographer was looking at the screen, her face went blank. And she asked me, "How far along are you supposed to be?" And I knew something was wrong. And then there was silence, and she said, "I don't see a heartbeat." And I was like, "No, that cannot be. We were just here. Everything was great." And I think I froze, and then, immediately lost it, immediately broke down. I'm laying on the table, crying, wailing, and she goes to get the doctor to confirm the absence of a heartbeat. And my doctor confirms the absence of a heartbeat. And I was just shattered. I was, mad that it wasn't happening for me, but also I was so angry that my school system didn't provide fertility coverage, because I knew that the county right next to us had amazing fertility coverage. So in my mind, I was like, how am I expected to play such a big role in the lives of these children? And I'm not even given any help to have one of my own. So I started to get really angry and bitter, and my husband and I discussed that a lot, and the possibility of me switching jobs and going to a new school district. I didn't even want to work for a company anymore that didn't have fertility benefits.
Fertility coverage is life-changing for those who have it. The lack of coverage means facing these challenges completely alone, without support or funds. Tara must be some teacher, because once she decided to change jobs, things moved really fast.
4 days after I found out about the miscarriage, this was on a Tuesday, I saw a job. I applied for it. The next morning, I had an email from the principal asking to have a virtual interview that day. And I had the interview. By that evening, I was presented with a job offer. And I thought, okay, this has to be meant to be. And so I accepted the job.
Tara's new employer, Metro Nashville Public Schools, had really great fertility coverage through a benefit called Progeny. Yes, that progeny. The progeny that produces this show. I asked Tara if she waited a while before activating the benefit, or if she got started right away.
Oh, yeah. I started with Progeny as soon as my benefits kicked in. I'm a huge planner, so I started my job in August, at the beginning of the school year. My benefits kicked in September 1st, which my fertility clinic was already aware of. That day, I called Progeny. I did my unpack it call, and I did a cycle that September. Since having Progeny, I've had 3 retrievals, and only one has gotten us to a transfer, but I definitely would not have been able to do 3 retrievals without this insurance.
Now, if you're new to the fertility world, maybe you've never done treatment before, you probably hear about coverage like Progeny and just to think about the money. Any monetary help for something as expensive as IVF is sure to be a relief and a really good thing. But for those who've been through it, those who've dealt with the complexities of scheduling, of logistically navigating everything, of dealing with many, many invoices, and just all of the back and forth, they will tell you that extended IVF experiences can be just incredibly draining emotionally as well as physically and financially. And that, which is what we call the member experience, is part of why Progeny really shines.
They just make everything really easy, and it's wonderful because going through this process is already so stressful. So when you have other things in place that can help you with that, not only help you financially, but emotionally, or if you have questions. I just talked to Progeny RX today. My medicine for this next cycle just came, and it's just easy to pick up the phone and call if you have a question.
Now, Tara is loving her Progeny benefit with MNPS, but she's still on her journey. In fact, we recorded this on the day before she was set to begin another retrieval round of IVF.
It's really, really hard. I allow myself time to grieve. A day, 2 days, 3 days, whatever I need to grieve. I also have really started to protect my mental health, and that might mean skipping baby showers or having to stay off social media for a little bit. I was going to baby showers and it was just killing me. And so now I'm doing what I know is going to protect my mental health, just allowing time to grieve and leaning on your support system. I do have a really good support system. Has helped. I'm not always in a good place. There are days I don't want to get out of bed. There are days something sets me off and I, cry for hours, but that's part of it. It really is an emotional roller coaster.
Any extended journey like this can really uproot a life. But remember, Tara is a teacher. During the school year, teachers don't have extremely flexible schedules. In fact, teachers have very rigid schedules. Now, for those watching on YouTube, this next part is a bit different. Tara and I connected offline after we recorded, and she really wanted to make sure that she made this point, but we didn't get the video call set up. So we did an audio recording only. For those listening at home on a podcast, just should sound different, but for the YouTube, it's going to be a different format temporarily.
I can't just rearrange my schedule and go in late because I have a classroom full of kids that I'm responsible for. So I'm frequently going in to work late when I'm in a STEM cycle. And I have to talk to my principal ahead of time, make sure there's somebody there to cover my class, and also make sure I have lesson plans ready. So this just adds another layer of stress, guilt, and anxiety to the whole process. And it can be really hard because if you have a bad appointment, then you have to go straight to work after and try and act like everything's fine. On the flip side, if things are going really well, you have to plan to be out for a retrieval and possibly for a transfer after that. So just a lot to plan for.
This has been an extremely difficult time, and Tara has taken some of the frustration and channeled it towards advocating for herself and for others who are going through the same thing. And I'm happy to say, this has actually worked in a really remarkable way.
So I joined Tennessee Fertility Advocates in June of 2021. It was a really nice support system to have, to know that other people are going through this, a platform to ask questions, and also I started to see these people that were advocating for themselves and their fertility benefits. So they were advocating and trying to get them within their companies and have success with it. And that really empowered me to start advocating for myself. I hadn't talked much about it, but once I saw these other people, going to their employers and asking for the benefits, I actually did the same. I emailed with the finance director in my county. I reached out to board members, talked to my admin, representatives in the county. I do feel like I was listened to and heard, but they were pretty honest in the fact that they wouldn't have the money to do it. But they actually just added progeny. I don't know what role I played in that, but I'd like to think my voice had an impact in that. And that was just because I had seen other companies on Tennessee Fertility Advocates. I knew that a lot of other companies had the benefits and that other people were doing something about it. And I wanted to be someone who was going to do something about it too.
When we use our voice to advocate for change, well, that's when change can happen. If you need help in doing that, we have you covered. You can go to progeny.com/talk-to-HR. There you'll find resources you can use to advocate for your employer to add progeny. It's all there at progeny.com/talk-to-HR. Now, what's next for Tara? Well, at the time of this interview, she was gearing up for another retrieval round, and she have also started looking into another option as well.
We met with the doctor about donor embryo, and she said, well, most people prefer donor eggs, but that one's more expensive. And I said, well, progeny covers donor eggs. Her mind was kind of blown about that. At this point, we are just doing research. We haven't made any type of decision, but my PCA gave me a list of egg banks that work with progeny, and we've spoken with the counselor again just to try and wrap our head around it. But the awesome thing is that thanks to progeny, the option's there. And through all of this, I know I've said it, but I'll say it again, every single decision I've made, starting IVF, switching jobs, was I never wanted to look back and wish that I would have done more. And having progeny allows me to do that. It allows me to have comfort knowing that I did everything I could.
I know that sometimes when we do these episodes featuring progeny members, they can feel a little like a commercial, or at very least like we're bragging about ourselves or something. But Tara is a perfect example of why it's so important that we have these conversations. Their options were limited and their chances were frankly very, very low. But when an employer steps up and offers coverage like progeny, well, options open up, and that can be all the difference. I want to give a big thank you to Tara for sharing her experiences with us here today. As you heard, she's very much still in the middle of her journey, so we're all going to be pulling for her, and hopefully we can bring her back sometime to give us an update down the road. I also want to thank you for listening or for watching on YouTube. If you enjoy this show, please don't hesitate to leave a comment or a rating. They really make a big difference. You can follow This Is Infertility on Instagram at This Is Infertility Podcast, and you can follow Progeny on Instagram at Progeny. This Is Infertility is brought to you by Progeny, Smarter Fertility Benefits. Please remember this podcast is not intended to substitute for the personalized, expert advice of your physician. I'm Dan Bolger, and this is Infertility.